One of the problems facing public transit these days is innovation. People want convenience, they want dependability, but they want something that really seems useful for their life. And in many cases, public transit can't be that. Microtransit is a type of system that utilizes small vehicles to get people where they need to go. But how do you get people to use a system like this? For people that don't want to pick up a bus from a stop and don't know how that works, the idea of finding out how to take a dial-a-ride type system is a challenge in and of itself. And then noticing this as well and making it lucrative and marketable to people who don't have any interest in public transit but hate driving in traffic is a whole other thing too. What we need is a new vehicle that could solve the issues of infrastructure development to increase transit ridership and also to get people's attention and build a loyalty to the brand of the transit.
Microtransit uses small vehicles in the same sort of fashion as a taxi service, often linking riders of classic transit to their homes or final destinations. This service is demand responsive, but often limited in its zone of operation to allow for more efficient performance and use of resources. It's most commonly used in paratransit applications, accommodating people with disabilities so as to simplify commutes and avoid having too many wheelchairs aboard regular route buses. According to Wikipedia, microtransit has roots in the Southern Hemisphere and Asia, but service in the United States dates back to 1914 during the Los Angeles streetcar strike, when a jitney driver began offering rides to small groups of commuters. The concept of dollar vans in New York City would be another example. Into the 21st century, these services were often branded as Dial-a-Ride or Click-and-Ride in Plymouth, my hometown, requiring riders call a microtransit service at least a day in advance of their trip to schedule a pickup by jitney or van, thus allowing the service to pick up other riders within their neighborhood to be delivered to destinations within areas along the way. The last decade has seen an attempt be made to innovate microtransit by way of app-based booking services and integration within trip planning software of regional transit providers to meet the commuting needs of people that live outside of traditional fixed transit routes or people whose commute timeframes aren't served by established schedules. Santa Maria is a city in the Central Coast region of California. It's along US Highway 101 and is laid out in a relatively flat grid, very indicative of a community built around personal vehicles. The city has previously had rail transport within the city, but this was mainly built to serve the agricultural industries that surround the community. A city of just over 100,000 residents have established a living in Santa Maria to work to grow produce for the nation and the world, as well as to serve each other in retail sales and various service industries. It's a compact city with connections to nearby communities that has seen success in its use of public transit as a commute option for those looking to avoid highway traffic. But according to Santa Maria Regional Transit, students, low-income households, and workers in the service industry, as well as migrant farming, make up a significant portion of daily ridership. Service demand around so-called bell periods, those at the start or end of a school or workday, are where demand for public transit is greatest in Santa Maria, with several of the city's more than a dozen bus routes seeing standing room only crush capacity during these times. This led the city to take a look at its options to improve the quality of their service. An aging fleet of diesel buses was in need of replacement. With California at the forefront of the long-term investment strategy in electric transport options, a rebranding of Santa Maria's public transit services came about in the 2020s, and SMART, as the city's transit is now called, chose a fleet of battery electric New Flyer buses for its fixed routes. For their paratransit operations, a fleet of cutaway van chassis buses was also in need of updating. This led SMART to the nation of Turkey, home of Karsan, a public transport manufacturer that has recently established a North American presence via the Demera Corporation. The Karsan E-Jest is the electric minibus that was chosen by Santa Maria to supplement their paratransit service and roll out their new microtransit service. The E-Jest is a fully electric vehicle with a maximum range of 130 miles and a top speed of 65 miles an hour. It utilizes standard EV charging points and BMW electric motor technology. It's capable of charging from virtually empty to full in as little as an hour to minimize downtimes. At $350,000 per vehicle, it's about half the cost of a new 44-passenger diesel bus, and somewhat more expensive than new jitney-style buses. Along with the new fleet of battery electric buses on fixed routes, The transition away from diesel is expected to save the city $400,000 in fuel and maintenance costs, as the EVs have 75% fewer moving parts to be serviced on what is expected to be about well over a decade per vehicle of service life. Where microtransit and the eJust excels is curb-to-curb transit operations. Like a ride-sharing or taxi service, the eJust can quietly roll down residential or side streets with ease and grace, requiring no infrastructure upgrades and carrying a car-like presence that can more easily win over those skeptical of public transit in their neighborhoods. Though it is fully accessible, the eJust has capacity in this configuration for only one wheelchair, with a total capacity of around 20. Its interior has the feel of a small bus, but its driving characteristics are more like a van or an SUV. Indeed, in California, the eJust is rated as a Class C motor vehicle, though SMART continues to certify its drivers as Class B, so as to maintain operator compatibility with the fleet of larger buses on fixed routes and a relatively short training period for drivers. Transit operator unions have often been the most critical of microtransit, a fact owing much to the irregular nature of demand for microtransit services, calling on smaller populations of riders and potentially fewer driver hours. To accommodate these concerns, SMART is utilizing its existing crew of drivers to operate the microtransit program, which is initially going to operate regular service on call from 8:30 p.m. through 10:30 p.m. on weekdays. Now that might sound severely limited, but it's in line with the nature of microtransit.
Adapting to meet the needs of underserved populations is the bread and butter of microtransit. Here in Santa Maria, there's an indigenous population with their own unique unwritten language that works in the farming industry around the city. Through the microtransit system, developing a system for them involved close contact with the community, a community that was not used to talking to fact finders. It goes a long way to show the dedication of the city of Santa Maria to this new system and making something that works for everyone involved.
Fixed bus routes in Santa Maria don't run much longer than an hour after the end of the evening commute, and the community isn't tremendously spread out. SMART routes within the city are supplemented by other regional agencies such as the San Luis Obispo RTA, allowing inner-city commuters access to Santa Maria and beyond. SMART's microtransit is a specialized service that solves a specific issue limiting ridership among those whose jobs see them working through the evening hours, able to get to work by bus, but having no fixed route service when the late whistle blows. The eJust will also see some off-peak service duty on fixed routes within the city, and flexibility of operations is the means by which SMART intends to develop future ridership. Along with cost savings from not having to deal with the volatility of diesel prices and heavy maintenance costs, the eJust hopes to incrementally build ridership in the community and increase farebox revenue that can be invested in the form of future service expansion as demand from the new ridership may create.
There's a fantastic presence to these little guys. It gets people smiling when it pulls in. It's not just something the manufacturer says. I'm seeing it on people's faces when it arrives, as it incidentally does. Now, it's dispatched infrequently based on how much charge it has and the demand of the particular route. It's going to be unveiled later this week publicly, and it had been used as a mall shuttle for a couple of weeks prior to that. What it could be used for is flexible enough that it is definitely going to be coming around in this community in surprising ways. It's a specialized tool like a laser used in surgery. In this case, it's for people that are on the second shift, like kitchen or restaurant jobs, that are going to be needing to get off of work and get back home at a time when regular bus routes aren't running in this town. And specific to Santa Maria, that makes sense. And for a lot of other cities, there's a lot of neighborhood and time of day specific uses that they could find plenty of utilization with as well.
Compared to Santa Maria, suburban communities like the one I live in, Plymouth, Minnesota, presently have rush hour express bus services to the nearby downtown core and intracity dial-a-ride services during and slightly around daylight hours. This level of service comes from car-based communities calling upon cities to reject regular fixed route systems for a number of reasons, some real and some theoretical, but ultimately all looking toward a reduction in the interference of public transit in the lives of those that are committed to travel by personal vehicle. But as populations grow, the infrastructure devoted to personal vehicles often doesn't keep pace with growth, and communities that don't invest in alternate modes of transport eventually have to decide how to cope with traffic congestion from that growth. Large-scale construction projects come at great expenses of tax dollars and emotion for citizens, whose daily lives can be served by targeted transit options like microtransit. Though the tendency among mine and many U.S. transit operators is one of extremes, Metro Transit in the Twin Cities is focused on expensive marquee projects such as BRT and LRT to get people from the suburbs to downtown, and suburban local routes remain confined to a select few older stock suburbs, most of which operate on frequencies too inconvenient for those not already taking regular public transit. Microtransit in the Twin Cities mostly consists of suburban services that will go as far as a neighboring city and across a wide range of hours so as to replace the need for a fixed route service operated by higher capacity vehicles. Many suburbs had devoted park and ride facilities and transit centers that link these services to urban fixed routes, but still require car dependency to utilize, thus decreasing the cost savings for commuters that will ultimately just continue driving to save time, making the infrastructure look unnecessary to taxpayers. A microtransit pilot project in North Minneapolis is attempting to do something more along the line of the small focus service seen in California and elsewhere, but the coverall replacement of bus service by microtransit options, some of which also utilize contracts with Uber and Lyft, to diminishing returns on public subsidies, has been more the norm for North America. See services in Dallas for examples of this. Its usefulness is hindered by the fracturing nature the reduction of service signals to established fixed bus route riders. It doesn't at first glance seem that operating microtransit over short spans of time would be more beneficial, but when combined with overall cost savings from new investment in electric propulsion along with the attractiveness of features like onboard device charging, next stops displayed on screens aboard vehicles, and the genuine novelty of the look of the new vehicles with their low infrastructure requirements, it makes a new kind of sense that the e-Jest and other electric transit options can build ridership and improve the flexibility of public transit, especially among riders that have never given up their car to get to work or run errands. With planning based on service of specific transit needs and the support of fixed route service, microtransit can serve communities and build ridership by completing the circle of service when single-mode solutions leave riders' needs to be desired. Microtransit does require keen study of the ongoing needs of riders, so the aptitude of the agency to effectively address changing demographics in the community is essential to success. Ultimately, it's a longer-term solution that overcomes specific challenges. A smaller city could theoretically be exclusively served by the e-Jest, provided the charging infrastructure was adequately established. But coexistence with fixed routes that are also seeking to improve efficiency find the e-Jest best utilized as a piece of a greater transit puzzle. The e-Jest rides really comfortably thanks to four-wheel independent suspension on decently sized tires. Santa Maria's focus on short trips with the e-Jest permitted a streamlined seating solution to minimize gross vehicle weight, so the lack of seat padding doesn't seem like much of an issue. These vehicles are eye-catching and don't interfere with traffic more than a taxi cab would when stopping to pick up riders. Indeed, efficiency concerns in colder climates might be the principal challenge to the e-Jest and similar electric vehicles. Beyond that, its success is all in the agency's management of where, when, and how it utilizes microtransit to determine whether these vehicles have a future in the communities considering their operation. For SMART, they're starting small as a service branding. The vehicles were officially launched a few days prior to this video in September 2024. It's very likely by the time you watch this that SMART may have adjusted their services to meet community needs of the e-Jest. Truly, California trends more toward receptive of mass transit, but properly concise microtransit is just as new here as it is in other parts of North America, such as Mississauga, Ontario, and St. John's, Newfoundland, where the e-Jest has also been utilized. My experience with SMART and the e-Jest was particularly positive, thanks to the thoughtfulness of their transit coordinators and drivers, all of whom had a devoted connection to the community they served. I got the feeling they took a lot of pride in serving Santa Maria and are keen to use their microtransit in the best ways for their community. The city is a working-class place probably not on the radar of tourists, but its place within the chain of friendly cities north of LA makes SMART a service that is just as capable of serving those traveling by any mode of transport through the region for work or play. A big thanks to G, Mark, Kenthony, and all the coworkers at SMART that graciously hosted me for a day of riding their network. I made this trip on my own expense and accepted only a care package of a driver's cap, fanny pack, and other small branded items that are often handed out at civic events by SMART. I really believe the eJust and other electric public transit options hold a lot of potential for agencies that want to maximize the ability to get around cities and improve the quality of life for commuters of all modes. Microtransit is a particular tool that isn't always used as intended, but with thoughtful rider-based planning, I think it holds a lot of gap-bridging potential to get people around when they don't have access to a personal vehicle. Leave a comment below about your thoughts and experiences, good or bad, with microtransit. It's contributing voices that make a whole story as well as more memorable trips. And if you work for a transit operator that has some new service to show off, I'd love to get in touch and have a look around at what's to come for the future of getting around. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with more travelogues from this and other trips I'm taking.